like to call to order the March 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Hendry County School Board. You'd all rise, and if so led, please join us in the invocation and pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, do we have any citizen comment on agenda items?
Madam Chair, we don't, but I would like to take care of a few matters of business. It shouldn't take more than a total of 10 minutes.
Okay, you're recognized.
First of all, I want to introduce Tamron Hall, who will be here representing the Walensky Law Firm.
Hampson Hayes.
Hampson Hayes.
With Hitsky Law Firm.
Walensky, okay. And then we also have our new representative from the Sniffen Law Group. I don't know if you have met everyone or not, but they will be representing us from this point on. Is there anything you'd like to say to the board, or?
Good evening, board members. We haven't met officially, but I'd love to meet you all after the meeting, and I'm really happy to be on board. Thank you all. Welcome.
The other thing that I want to talk about, and I will yield to someone else, a few months back, a group that was employed by the county was working with the county on block grant applications. They came across one that had workforce development. They got with Mr. Swindle, who serves on the commission. He called me. I said, yes, let's do this. Let's go for it. So we've done that. We have been awarded a grant through the Office of Economic Development and Community Development Block Grant. We're about working for $6 million, and at this point, I'll let Mr. Swindle talk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board. That was a great summary, and not a whole lot to add to that other than y'all know that over the last 4 years, we've been in exponential growth mode. We now have one of the most up-to-date, modern, safest welding facilities in the state. As we speak, we have an adult HVAC program going on with some of the best training and equipment in the state right now in the new facility that's built at Wilson High School. And just as Mr. Paletti said, working the channels through the county, this actually is a Hurricane Irma recovery for displaced workers grant that came available for workforce development that had to be obtained through a training agency only, and we're the only one in Hendry County. And so it kind of come into our lap, and it was a very short window of time for turnaround, so I was able to work with the county folks to make that happen. Last Wednesday evening, we got the award from the Department of Economic Opportunity of the state of Florida, and it is a community development block or CDBG grant that is coming our way for $1.46 million, and we're going to be ramping up a diesel technology training program, and it'll be an adult program here in Clueston that we allow adults as well as high school students to dual enroll into. They will go all the way through a 2-year program with a complete path to employment, and then we get an ASC T2 certification at the end of that. We've already got, we've not even been given the dollars yet. We already have community partners lined up that are going to work with us to make that happen. So don't want to take a lot of time. I'll be here after if you have any questions. I encourage you to come see, as always, the facilities, the folks that are seeing what we have, even in the industry, are blown away by what we're doing right here in Clueston and Hendry County in general. So this diesel program will add to our bailiwick of training opportunities that we're doing for our students and citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Swindle.
Madam Chair, that was my business.
That was good business. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, on consent agenda, is there any items that any members of the board would like to have removed into action items? Okay, do I have a recommendation to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's move down to action items. Action item A is the 2020-21 school calendar. Do I have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of the proposed 2020-21 school calendar.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say it like I do every year, I wish we'd get rid of those half days, those early release days if we could. I just still don't think that they're productive for our students. If we could work it some other way, I just would like to see us do that. I say it every year.
I know, it's,
I'm not, I mean, it doesn't change, just, other than that, I'm done. Thank you.
appreciate your input. And I understand that perspective on that. Do we have any further discussion on the matter? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The 2021 school calendar passes unanimously. Here we are at action item B, ratification of the 2019 through 2020 Hendry Educational Support Personnel Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. Do I have a recommendation?
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak for just a moment with regard to HESPA. They have bargained in good faith with us for the majority of this year. They've been very patient. This proposal recognizes the work they do. If it was, they deserve the money. If I could, I would give them more. But at this point, I would recommend approval of the HESPA collective bargaining agreement for the coming year.
Have a recommendation? Do I have a motion?
So
moved.
Second?
Second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I do have a concern. I spoke with Mr. Seeley about it earlier today. There is a correction we definitely need to make on the retroactive back pay. They've got it till 2000, back to 18 on page 49. We need to correct that date.
And that will get corrected. I noticed that today when I was reading that, but that
Okay.
is 2/19.
Yeah, it's to July 1, 2019.
Yes.
Not 18.
So my recommendation would be pending that change.
And then, Madam Chair,
Yes.
the other thing is, anytime we make any kind of changes to these contracts, I would like to see the verbal changes in whatever we're extracting out of the contract in red in that area, and then whatever languages we're adding in green, so that we know right where it's going. I appreciate the summary page, but I'd also like to see exactly where it's at in that contract, in those languages, if we could do that.
You want me to redo that?
But just for further purpose, for future purposes,
Okay.
whenever we're doing them, it would just make sense, we don't have to jump around, go to one page and then try to go back and forth. It's in there. Yes, makes it obvious where it
I would
is.
certainly do that instead of the summary, sure.
You know, I mean, the summary's great, and that would give us an idea on where to look, and then we can see exactly in the contracts where that language is located. I'd appreciate that. And my turn still?
The floor is yours.
Was, let me back up to the summary. It just says on the summary, it says page 2 changes. And then for item number 2, and then it says on item number 3, it says language changes. Can somebody kind of clarify a little bit of that?
The number 1 and number 2 are just the date changes, and that's on the first page and the second page.
Okay.
Just the dates. Number 3 is language changes, Article 8.5,
Mm-hmm.
and we struck out the word satisfactory and put highly effective. The paras, as being part of that bargaining unit, now qualify for the best and brightest. And in order for them to do that, they have to have an evaluation of either effective or highly effective. So we changed the form, the actual form, which is on page 72, if you want to see it. It used to be satisfactory and unsatisfactory. That was the only thing you could mark. So we changed it to look more like the instructional, highly effective, effective, needs improvement, and I think unsatisfactory.
And before you let that get too dry in your mind, the ink, be aware the legislature could easily change that for this coming year.
Okay.
So you will see new language in the next, if that happens, you'll see new language in the next bargaining agreement.
Okay, all right. Then the only other concern is this 3-year, which Mr. City and I kind of roughly spoke about this. I'm just kind of wondering if we're going to, if, it seems like it's wide open in negotiations for salaries and benefits every year anyway. So I'm just kind of curious on why we're putting a 3-year deal out here and we're basically renegotiating every year anyway. I'm just kind of curious why we
Can I
do
give
that.
you the history lesson?
Sure, please, by all means.
A 3-year contract just means that the total book is good for 3 years. Every year, we have agreed with HESPA and with the Teachers Association that they could have openers. That's what you call the sections that they decide to open, okay? I guarantee that money is gonna be one of the openers every single year.
Right.
Okay? One time, in my memory, and I stand to be corrected, Mr. Samberdyke might have some institutional memory, there was a 3-year pay contract that was approved like in 1985 through 88. The risk that you have is your crystal ball gets awfully cloudy 3 years out on that, okay, one way or another. It turned out that in the case, I don't know if you remember this, but this was under Governor Martinez when we had something called the service tax. Teachers settled, and it turned out that the district had earned quite a bit more money. Well, the settlement had already been made. Conversely, when Governor Martinez left office and Governor Childs came into office, we had a huge, we went into a recession. So there had to be negative impact bargaining there to give up some of the things that had been bargained. The board also had to look at this back in 2008, when the state all of a sudden said, you're not getting enough money, or you're not getting the money we said you're gonna get.
Yes.
So there's a risk to going with money too many years out.
Right.
But with this is the total book, okay?
Right.
So that eventually, under someone else, you're gonna get a new total book where everything is opened. And that's when it takes even longer than what we had to take this year to come to a settlement.
Well, and what you were just talking about is my actual concern, is if the economy takes a downturn and then they come to, we don't want to talk about anything money this year, we're in trouble.
Then the board opens.
And so,
Yeah.
that's my only concern, is getting a 3-year contract out there like that, saying we're going to give you 2% every year. And then the steps and all of that other stuff, that's a pretty good chunk. I mean, because we're looking at 220, what was that?
Okay. Now, the legacy,
$220,000 bump every year, $219,000.
the legacy piece that we have, that the board, if it approves this, would have is the 2% plus the step. Now, that does not mean an automatic 2% next year also. That means 2% on what you have now, which carries forward. For example, a $10,000 salary would get $10,200. Next year is $2,200 until it's negotiated again. It's not $2,400. The proposed bonus has no legacy. Okay, that is a one-time cash payment.
Okay.
So every year you would be looking at that. It would be, I can't say it would never happen, but it's hard for me to understand why the association would never open money. And usually if there is a problem, like a economic downturn, both sides already know it going into bargaining.
Right. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think that everybody that we have that works in the district deserves twice what they're making. It's
Yeah.
just important to be able to provide that to them. So that's just $323,000 is a big chunk. And with our finances kind of being in turmoil the way they have been, it just kind of concerns me. Ms. Riccardi, do you feel comfortable with these numbers?
Yes, I do.
We didn't do anything without blessings from the finance office.
So,
And as a matter of fact, there were some things she said, no, this isn't gonna work. So we took that off.
okay. Yeah, I'm just, if we do something, I want to make sure it's sustainable.
Well, that's it. Now, HESPA won't necessarily agree with me on this, but one of the benefits of waiting so long is you have a clearer, better picture of your finances.
Right.
Okay, so the risk is marginal when we settle with HESPA, even though everybody would like to settle early on.
Sure.
The risk that we really took was settling with the teachers. Okay, but as we went through the year, you get a better idea of where the finances are going and where we stand. So it is sustainable. The one-time bonus is payable, but there's no legacy on the bonus.
Okay. Okay, that's my piece. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
The last meeting, we talked about the need for the reporting procedures, need improvement in financial. And I was wondering how you were coming with that.
With the what, I'm sorry?
The financial reporting procedures we got dinged on from last year. And have you got a handle on now how that's going to make it better?
It's definitely gonna be better, yes. So I can say it'll be better.
Yeah. It wasn't you, it was the prior one, yeah. And I was wondering if
You
you...
know, but I think every year everybody strives to do a better job.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, that was all I had.
Well, I have some comments. The board entered into executive session on November 5th of last year and, expressed for the purposes of discussing collective bargaining with HESPA. And, we expressed our concern at that moment, our apprehension with the budget. And then this morning, we get a fiscal impact statement on what this collective bargaining agreement is going to look like to us. And we got it this morning instead of with our board packet. And I do not like 11th hour walk-ons. You've heard me say I want to know how, everything the dollar amount of everything we're approving. And so, according to this fiscal impact statement, the offer presented to HESPA, according to the impact, it was nearly 3 months later on January 31st. And the parameters that we gave in executive session that were reflected in that offer would have been a one-time payout of $89,000 and then approximately $149,000 in annual recurring costs. And I don't know about my colleagues, but I was a little blindsided on February 4th to find out that when we have this offer on the table that that HESPA wanted to go in to file impasse. And from February 4th, when the board found out to present, the negotiation team appointed by the superintendent nor the superintendent have called us and about the need for an executive session for the board to collectively discuss contract negotiations, which is what executive session is for. And then on Thursday afternoon, February 7th, we received the board recommendation for a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with a financial impact, a one-time financial impact of approximately $324,000 and an annual recurring cost of $220,000. And that is, that's a big spread from what our initial parameters were. The parameters were overshot by the board, $146,000 in one-time expenditures and $71,000 a year in annual recurring costs. And, without so much as a collective discussion, this ability to have this conversation privately, in an executive discussion to find out what can we afford. I don't know how long you guys have been in the negotiation process, but I don't feel like it was entirely transparent. And I believe the board deserves an opportunity to discuss the financial feasibility and sustainability and be provided with documentation that proves that this is feasible and sustainable, especially when this is falling outside the parameters set by the board. And we haven't had any further executive sessions for that. My concerns are purely financial. Do I think HESPA deserves a raise? Absolutely. Every time I see a bus driver, I think about a picture I saw with a thermometer that was showing temperatures over 100 degrees. I know what our paras are doing for our students in our schools. Our custodial and our office staff, they're truly running campuses. They're awesome. But, like Mr. Bassman says, I'm terrified of the feasibility of this offer that fell outside of the parameters, as well as the sustainability. We had budget amendments brought up here that were presented a month ago. They were subsequently removed from the agenda. And we haven't revisited them. And my concern, after reaching out to other school financial people in the state, is there's an unaccounted $2 million discrepancy between the proposed amendments, which were salary cuts, and our actual salary matrix. And the request for documentation to support those amendment adjustments has not been provided. That's a cause for concern for me. I don't know if we're looking at a $2 million deficit or $4 million deficit. And, meanwhile, I'm looking at our financial reports. Our spending is up 7.9% over last year. I have not seen a plan put forth before us from administration, how we're going to quell that, get that under control. And my level of concern regarding the accuracy of our finances that we're being presented with has increased even more exponentially after the significant finding from the Auditor General regarding, an accidental omission from our annual financial report last year. I think everybody got that email. A $4.6 million omission. And if I'm struggling with the accuracy on that, well, just like Mr. Yanisek said, well, there's one roach, there's more than one. And, and it is, as much as it pains me that our student support personnel, because that's who they are, they're not our employees, I see them as our student support personnel, have been dragged along this negotiation process. I'm really not comfortable making this decision without discussing the collective bargaining agreement with my colleagues in executive session and being provided with the financial documentation that I'm going to be comfortable making a vote on this, because it's not a one-time expenditure. We've got legacy expenses on that. And my proposal is to table this until next meeting, until we are able to get more than just a verbal confirmation, but those budget amendments and the documentation to support those.
If I could, you have raised your concerns and they are being addressed, not as quickly as you would like. Now, the one-time auditor's issue has already been corrected, okay, and we have already sent that off. So that's no longer part of the issue. I will apologize because I did not realize that you did not get the numbers until I got a text from another board member, and I looked back and thought, oh my gosh, you didn't get it. So I sent that out. It was not like deliberately late. I sent out as quickly as I discovered the issue. I got with Mr. Seeley this morning and said, get that stuff together and get that out to the board. There is, the legacy cost is only on the 2% plus the one step. You have asked us to bargain. I believe we bargained in good faith. We have avoided the impasse. We are getting the employees the money that they deserve and that they have earned. They have worked very well with us. Nothing that we discussed was done without a careful gleaning by our chief financial officer. Can we pay this? Is it sustainable? Now, we have had limited, we have had some meetings where we only had one meeting in the month. We had a workshop prior to the last meeting, and so I didn't know if you wanted to go through an executive session after that meeting. The reason why we're bringing this up now is so that our employees could get the retro pay and the increase prior to spring break. If we do this, if we do table, and it's definitely up to the board, you can approve it, you can table this, you can reject this. All right? But the quickest you can get back to it is April. So those are just things. I don't know if Mr. West has anything to say about the process or not. But if we do, if you do table it, the quickest we're going to get to it is a month from now.
Could you pick up the phone and set up meetings with your board members to have that conversation? Because I feel like what's happening right now is not only was this bargained outside the parameters, now we're being set up on the dais and told how much that they deserve it, which there is no debate about how much they deserve it.
Traditionally, what would have happened?
But, we didn't have when the parameters, the negotiation parameters were changed, like, did anybody here get an update on that? I mean, because I didn't. And so what I saw in the collective bargaining agreement was, it was a little shocking because we weren't kept abreast of this matter. And then we even had an opportunity to come together and have the ability to have that conversation candidly in executive session. And I feel like right now we're being placed up here and pitted. If we don't support this now, then it's our fault that they're not going to get their money for spring break, or and I don't think that's how it should be. I think that the board should have had the opportunity to have this conversation and have those questions.
Historically, what would have happened, and it did not happen on this, is that when you got the packet, you would have had the financial page with it. That did not happen, and I did not catch it till this morning. Okay, so actually I caught it last night when I got the text from another board member. And that's when I saw it and said it needs to go out. So it's unfortunate. That would have generated the discussion that you're asking about. That could have prolonged, had I done that, that could have resulted in a executive session tonight to explain it. It didn't happen. And, the other thing that we need to realize, I'm a veteran, but we have some new people working on this who are not veterans. And in one case, we have somebody who this is her first time doing it. Okay, and Mr. Seeley, this might be his second time doing this. So it's on my shoulders. I did not catch that it had not gone out to you. But we need to also realize that there are new people looking at it. And despite what we're saying, I think the financial situation for our district looks better than we felt it looked before. So my recommendation is still going to be for approval of this, but it's certainly within the board's ability to table, approve, or deny.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I can completely understand where you're coming from, and I do think that an executive session would be a good thing to discuss in more detail and get some more information that you are requesting. I mean, I understand everybody wants their money. You know, everybody wants more money, but I think that we need to make sure that we can do exactly what we're saying we can do. I can completely support you tabling this until we have an executive session.
I just think that, you know, in light of the last discussion on budget amendment, when I asked for, please give me the supporting documentation, I have no money problem wanting to spend the money to get it done, but I understand the importance of trust, but I was not elected to trust anybody. I was elected to verify. And I think the verification needs to be there. The documentation has to be there.
I'm wondering if there is a need for an executive session since the proposal is already out, okay? There's nothing else that we're saying, so we probably could have that at a regular meeting without an executive session. So that what you're trying to get is, can we afford this? Is it fundable? Can we do it?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pletty, if we did that, could we have a special meeting, say next week, so that we could potentially vote on it next week before?
The issue is what people in the finance office and in IT have to do to get all of the stuff going. And that's cutting it very close. I don't think it could happen.
Madam Chairman? Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I understand what everybody's saying, but I really don't think that our employees should be suffering because something we jacked up and done wrong. I think we can go ahead. Well, whatever is messed up, so I don't think they should suffer and not get their funds. So I really don't want to table it because those people waiting a long time for their money. And I just suggest that we just vote for it and then let it go from there. And then whatever decision is made today out of all of us voting, we live with that. But we cannot keep, because these people need their money. They negotiated for years in good faith. I have no reason why not to trust them. I understand what you're saying. You want to be verified. That's good. But we shouldn't let other folks suffer for what we all got to get together. So what I mean? So it's up to you guys. We can vote for it, and then we can make a decision, aye, yay, nay, or whatever. But I don't think they should be suffering because everybody watching us, we supposed to know what we're doing. And somehow it didn't get done. He's apologized. I don't know what we can do. What's going to happen now? We're going to have an executive session, and then they're going to talk about it. Oh, yeah, it's right, now do it. These folks still don't have their money. So they can make numbers to you all you want, but it's not going to change the people not getting their money.
Well, it's going to be devastating if we can give people money for this year and the next year have to cut positions.
But you're right. But they're telling us that that's not going to happen.
That is the sustainability piece that we have
But we
already
got
worked out.
But that's the verification I want to see, because I don't
I
want to
got
go in trustingly, because I've come in with a lot of trust before and it has not worked out. And
I suggest we just vote. That's all.
I would like to ask a question.
Vote.
Since 2012, how many times have we not been able to sustain what I've asked the board, that I've recommended the board? How many people have lost their jobs because I've come to you saying we need to do this and we were unable to do it? I never go out on a whim. I'm really not asking you to trust me on this. It has been vetted. We can provide the information to get this to the folks. Generally, the board is not active, although it could be, in day-to-day bargaining sessions. But since 2012, as a matter of fact, I have to go back to 2008, when it wasn't an action of this board, but it was the advent of the Great Recession that caused the Hendry County School District to eliminate positions. But we have not had to eliminate, I'm very careful about this, and I do not mean to put the board in a position of being the bad guy, but it just, as it turns out, this is how it happened. I think HESPA voted 97.5% in favor of this. And you think no harm, no foul, that we can just, they've waited this long, they could wait another month. But yet it's another month that they have to wait. And I don't think we need to put the employees, my recommendation is still gonna be to approve the HESPA contract.
Mr. West, when did you start on the negotiation process?
We first met in March of last year.
In March.
Our contract was due July of last year.
It was due in July of last
Yeah.
year. Okay. And when did you get the initial parameters that you guys were not okay with? Do you remember that?
Not offhand. You remember, Jamie?
Exact date,
Like January?
we came back with the 2% on January 31st.
That's when you presented the 2%?
Well, that's the numbers, that's the date that Ms. Riccardi has on this, and I think those are the dates we put them together, is that correct?
Okay, so we had executive session with that parameter on November 5th. It doesn't get, the offer doesn't get to you till January 30th. It's not the board that's holding this, has held this up. It's not the board.
I'm thinking that the January was a reiteration of the 2%. That there was an offer and we reiterated 2%. Now, HESPA agreed with us that we should not talk money for a while. That's part of the bargaining process. Nobody has tried to throw the board under the bus as being the cause for the delay. You are understanding you are settling last year's contract. That's not abnormal. So we have gone on, we went on, when we settled last year's contract, it was, I believe, somewhere in April for the previous year. So that bought us some time. What you do is, as you are bargaining, you are waiting, and we held, and that's what I say, they operated in good faith, give us more time to see where the teachers, and we even said this to them, where the teachers' settlement had fallen out and how that impacts the district. And we asked them to wait, and so they did. And then they came back because one of the issues that happened is we had given the teachers 3 steps. And I believe the HESPA folks had lost those 3 steps at the same time. And I believe we came back with, you asked for 3, then we went to 2, we settled on 1. So that's what it's just a long process that happens. Some years you're gonna have a quick process.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would make a recommendation that we just go ahead and vote on tabling this and then move forward.
Okay, so will you state that as a motion?
I make a motion that we vote on tabling this
For next meeting?
until our next meeting.
And that is truly.
Well, until we have an executive session like we discussed.
Will we have the data necessary by the next meeting? I mean,
Pardon?
will we have the data necessary by the next
The
meeting?
data is here, we have it, I don't know if we have it presentable to the board at this point.
That's why I was asking if we could get it by next week, but you said it was.
The issue is still, if we get it by next week, by next Friday, we draw another paycheck. So it's, the timeline is
It's a month.
there. It's a month off. Because of spring break, we're gonna generate a paycheck this Friday and next Friday.
All right, we have a motion to table till next meeting. Do we have a second?
Second?
Have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion to table was 2-3 with
Nay.
Nelson, Berg, and Brown voting nay. Okay, so let's go back to the original ratification. We have the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All, any discussion, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay?
Nay. It is a repeat of the tabling vote. Opposite. Okay. Down to board member business, permission to advertise proposed policy revisions.
Okay, this is actually brought about because we discovered some policies that were there and some policies that have been in limbo and some policies that, pass it down, the policies that need to change. What goes on is that some of the things we do is in policy. Other things that we do might be past practice. The problem is a good bit of the historic knowledge of the operations of how we do things in this district are gone. And some more knowledge is going to be gone here in about 6 or 7 months. Therefore, the board may want to look at these policies and come up with another policy to deal with this. Basically, this first page deals with administration, which says that administrative staff members will receive the same benefits as provided to the instructional staff. That means what HCEA gets is what administrators get. That's current policy. Then we get a little bit discombobulated. This next page says that the school board shall provide all instructional staff members with benefits as provided in the collective bargaining agreement. That deals with those people who are not eligible to join the union, okay? But exactly what does that mean? It's talking about benefits, whereas support staff, okay, instructional staff, on the next page, it is support staff. We're not sure what the difference is between support staff and the people who are ineligible. Then we have on the next page, salaries and fringe benefits for all support staff who are not covered. You see where it can get confusing? So I really want some permission to advertise for the repeal of one policy, and let's work collaboratively to establish a policy to handle administrators, non-support, or the support staff, and the non-eligible staff. We need a common language, because I know what we do, but
Policy doesn't reflect that.
That's clear as mud right
Mr.
there.
Seeley is relatively new with the HR department. Ms. Riccardi is new with the finance department. You're gonna have a new superintendent. So I would feel more comfortable if the board wanted a policy that deals with all those situations.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
can we direct Neola to create a policy on that?
That's,
These are Neola policies.
pardon?
These are Neola policies.
But I mean, can we direct them though
Wordsmith
to,
something to meet our criteria.
yeah, to redo this
We can
and
do
make
that.
it,
And what had happened is a previous HR director had approved some of the things without really looking at what
going through
the
it?
impact was.
Yeah.
And so the policy's out there. We don't want to be unfair to anybody. But we also want policy directing our actions on how we treat everybody.
Clarify a little bit better.
Yes.
So what's the next step? Like, what do we need to do?
I
Do
would
you need
like-
a motion? Like, what do we need to do to wrap
I
this
would
up?
like a motion to allow the advertise to remove policy 4422.
There's still another policy too out there for advertising.
And policy
511.01.
5111.01. And adopt that one, or permission to advertise it?
Right.
Yeah.
Which one?
5111.01.
Not
Okay,
It's in your-
so he's recommending permission to advertise proposed policy revisions, which would be a deletion of policy 4422 and advertising the changes on policy 5111.01.
So moved.
Second.
We have any
But
further discussion?
5111 is dealing with something else.
Yes, we're looking for the,
Those revisions.
we're looking to
And
advertise these
removal.
revisions.
Yes,
Yes.
and removal of
And delete
4422.
4422. Okay, so we've got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Second item of board member business is termination of agreement with Wititsky, Ross, and McKinley. That doesn't require a recommendation from you, does it?
No, because y'all hired them.
Okay.
If I may make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
The Wititsky Law Firm recommends that the board retain us as counsel on 2 pending matters. The first is a pending desegregation case. It's a lawsuit in the federal court system, the Southern District of Florida, entitled United States versus Board of Education of Hendry County. That matter should be concluded this year, and we've been working on that. And the second item is obtaining a refund of the remaining amount of taxes due from Hendry County for real property taxes that was paid in error. And I think we're about 80% completed on that task, but there's still some funds that are owed to the board.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney, what kind of timeline are we looking at to have everything completed? What are we thinking?
I was told definitely this calendar year, but specifically on the lawsuit, it will likely be concluded by the end of June 2020.
The end of June. At what rate are we talking about for
Maybe
retainage?
the same as the current contract.
Okay. What's our new counsel say about that?
Thank you, Superintendent, Chairwoman, members of the board. It's really up to your discussion if that's what you want to do. They certainly know the case better than we do, so it would save some time and expenses in that regard if we took over a pending lawsuit that they're mostly finished with, or a pending matter that they're mostly finished with. It would take us time to come up to speed, learn the matter before proceeding. So it would save some time and cost in that regard, but it's completely up to your discretion.
I'm looking at, the goals we want to get here are, is it efficient? Or is our decision going to be efficient, and is it going to be cost effective? And in this matter, if we go with her recommendation, is Sniffen and Spellman going to provide oversight on that? Or these are just, are we going to be out there dealing with, 2 separate contract issues there? I mean, as far as the lawsuit and the tax refunds.
We certainly can provide oversight of them while they're finishing those matters.
Because I just feel like the desegregation order has stretched on. I feel like from the time that I first sat down on this dais, I was told about this and that it's going to be wrapped up this year, and it just keeps kind of going on and on and on. And so I would like to see that closed out. And
Could I clarify that? when we had the visit from the Department of Justice, they tentatively lifted, but we have to provide data annually to prove that we're doing what we said we would do. So we have been I just sent a whole bunch of new data with recent hires and ethnicities to Mr. McKinley, who is providing that to the DOJ. We are hopeful that that will stop the desegregation suit, which dates back to 1971. So it's been a long time. DOJ has come down. We met with the staff, we toured the community, and then we said we agreed to certain stipulations that they put in. And that was when we were sending people all over the place to recruit. We had to check that box off. That has been done. Our numbers look better in terms of minority employment, but remember our minority flipped. This was dealing with African American, and our minority group is now not African American, but they're looking solely at African American data. So it's not a case where it just goes off and on or that we're dragging it out. We have to provide yearly data to them, and hopefully this year is the one that is the magic bullet. But we have tentatively been lifted from it, but we need the stamp of approval that it's over and done.
So,
I move we should, Madam Chairman, I think we should continue with the firm we have, because they know what's been going on.
okay, so we're going to terminate the agreement, the current agreement that we've had with Wetitsi, Ross, and McKinley, minus the two issues. The desegregation order, they're going to be allowed to work on that, and into the completion of the refund of taxes under the oversight of Sniffen and Spellman. Is that agreeable?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
sir.
was going to ask in the end, but I guess we can do it now. Now that we're changing over to a different firm, we have any cases that pending, other than what you just mentioned, that we all need to be aware of, but it's just that it's going to pass them all over to the next firm? What cases are going to pass over?
The passover to Sniff and Spellman, they're gonna pick up the everyday legal that we're doing, the field the questions, the attend the board meeting.
What cases?
Cases in your litigation report.
Right. Is that what you're asking? The cases are on the litigation?
We had
report?
over 5, 3, 2, my thing died on me.
I want to say that, I don't know how many were listed, but some of them have been settled. And so he was just giving you input on that. Some are still in the works, so to speak. So there might be one or two, but I'm not saying that what I'm telling you are the firm numbers. But at this point, what happens is that the new law firm takes over on that.
Okay.
Because also remember that Mr. McKinley was not necessarily a litigator. So someone else was handling those anyway.
Okay. We don't have a whole lot of them,
No,
less than 5.
I want to say 5. If it's not 5, I'm not far off the mark.
Okay.
And of those 5, some have already been settled.
Okay.
We just received a list of some that were settled.
Pardon?
We just got a list of some that were
Yeah,
settled.
yeah.
3 or 4, I believe, something like that, if I remember right.
And my next question is, to the attorney, we're gonna have the same, you're gonna be with us every meeting, or it's gonna be like different people?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, members of the board. So I live closer So it will probably be me attending the meetings, but as Terry Harmon represented to you, we do have other members of the firm. So if it's not me, he'll make himself available. It will most likely be the two of us. And we do both primarily do education law. We're both board certified in education law, so we're used to representing school boards. But in the instance that neither one of us could be available, which I don't see happening, we would be able to send somebody else who would be, capable of doing that service as well.
Oh, okay. The only thing I ask is that I've gotten accustomed to seeing the same person every meeting, but you're telling me now that it's going to be either you or a gentleman.
It's mostly going to be me.
Okay.
It will probably only be Terry if I'm unavailable.
I just want to be able to get used to your smile. That's all. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, the financial report doesn't require any board action. Okay, are there any further comments from the audience? Any citizen comments on anything we discussed tonight? All right, do we have any further board member business, Reverend Brown?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This is to our staff and those that do all our finances and all that good stuff. Tonight, I was really motivated to make sure the vote go through because I think that people deserve their money. I did not feel good about the way information had not been passed through us. And I know the superintendent has apologized for that, and I appreciate that, but I'm asking that there be no more future events like this, that we can all be able to come together and show the continuity that this board always had. I think everybody on this board wants to do the great things we can do for Henry County, and I think that it can be done and will be done. And I appreciate the superintendent saying, taking the bullet, say, hey, it's on me, I apologize, so we all can kind of move on to the next step. But I appreciate it. But do me that one favor, let's stay ahead of it, and then we'll be able to do a good job. That's the Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Burke? Mr. Brown? I mean, Mr.
I
Vasquez?
don't talk that much, huh?
I'm sure, Mr. Brown.
Get us off, man.
Ms. Vasquez?
I had courage.
The only thing I would like to say is that I'm extremely proud of our vocation and how far it has come. And I do greatly appreciate that Mr. Swindle has done a phenomenal job with that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else he has coming down the line here, because I'm fired up. Vocation is why I ran for this board to begin with. I'm a vocation guy, and I think that is great. That's, we need to show the people out there and give them the head start, the ones that aren't going to college. And I think that is just phenomenal what we've got going in Hendry County. So that was it.
Agreed with Mr. Bass when he took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say the same thing, but thank you for all you're doing, Mr. Swindle. It's great.
And I just want to echo the comments of my colleagues regarding our career technical education programs. It exciting to see a letter come from governor's appropriation that this is happening in Hendry County, and I appreciate your leadership and reviving essentially a program and a department that was DOA when you got here. So thank you for that. And I just want to put something on the radar, and that is FTE for the coming year. Looking on social media, I saw a particular private school, and they were showing some pictures of their secondary classes, and I was shocked at the amount of students that they had. And so, of course, I start making phone calls and, what's your enrollment like? Because when their enrollment grows, the public school enrollment decreases. And, we've got one campus putting in extra portables, private school campus putting in extra portables. We have exponential growth on another one. There's a private school on the opposite side of the county that I live on that's showing a lot of growth. And just in the conversations that I'm hearing, that we may have some major FTE drops in secondary. And so, from kids transferring up from elementary school. So I don't know what can be done there, if we need to put out better information and information about our county and what we're providing students, or we need to take a look at ourselves to see, why this is happening. But, at the end of the day, I'm concerned about what FTE is gonna look like, because I just feel like it has been declining, and I don't want to over-project and get ourselves into another situation where we thought we were going to have FTE that we didn't. So, that's all I got. You have anything?
Yes. I don't think you understand how good it is to have someone like Mr. Swindle come into a program that was on its last legs. I know I've said it, but I don't think you understand that we were about to close the program. As a matter of fact, we had so little money that had been generated by prior directors that when Mr. Swindle came in, there was not money to pay a custodian. There was enough money to pay him and a secretary, and that was it. So the directive that he had was, we've got to get this thing going. And he has more than answered the bell, or answered the challenge. With FTE, I think one of the things that we need to be concerned about is probably close to middle school. And I think we have some solidity and some go-to-itiveness that's gonna finally stick there. The meet and greet has been scheduled for March 9th, Monday, starting at 6, to meet the new administrative team. And we are excited about the prospects and the things that are happening there, the hiring and the issues with personnel that we're dealing with, and we will just wait and see. But also bear in mind, we have not projected a FTE growth in 2 years.
I'm just saying, be on the lookout for an FTE drop.
We have been saying 0. Okay.
What time did you
That's
say?
all I have.
At 6 p.m., where's it gonna be?
CMS cafeteria, or, no, I'll get that to you. It might be in the library. I'll get that to you, manana, tomorrow. I'll get it to you as soon as I can.
Well, let's chat about that before we choose a location, because maybe the foundation or the task force can help out with
Refreshments.
having providing a venue and refreshments and some
Okay.
advertisement there.
Okay.
All right, anybody got anything else? Okay.